morning. Hope you guys are doing well. It is Wednesday at 7:25. I'm starting a little bit late. This won't be quite as long of a lecture as normal because we don't have as much to get through. We don't spend quite as much time in these two chapters because it's, again, a lot of thought. So on page 4, I think we had just finished talking about expanding and the need for experts, and the idea that these experts were needed because of increase and advance in technology. And so engineering, architecture, chemistry, accounting, everything to do with business managers, management of public private institutions, and those things, again, will be necessary because of the industrialization that has taken place. So we've got technology has outpaced both professionalizing jobs and education. So that has to catch up. And so that's what this big expanse is now. The other part is what's going to happen to society. Industrialization and urban development made society more diverse and less unified. So we've spent all this time talking about really small groups of, really three groups of people: rich, noble people, the little teeny tiny middle class that was running the shops and all those things, and then this big giant group of poor people. Well, now that big giant group of poor people slowly has changed into really poor people, working class people, and then we're going to take a big chunk out of that working class people and they're going to move into this middle class. And even in the middle class, we're going to grow and have all these different categories. So 20% of the population will be making up that middle class. So we have upper middle class, bankers, industrial leaders, commerce, middle class, the middle class, smaller businessmen, professionals, merchants, doctors, lawyers, and the lower middle class, the small, will be the independent shopkeepers, store managers, civil servants, teachers, clerks, all of that. And that's going to grow. Women are going to become part of this. If you look at the bottom of page 4, women worked as department store clerks, stenographers. Stenographers are people that take shorthand. It's an old art. I don't know anybody. Maybe some of your grandmothers or even great-grandmothers know what shorthand is. It was a class that you would take in college, or a class you would take in college to become like a secretary. And what it was a series of symbols for taking down oral communication. And so typically what would happen is a boss would say, Miss Peyton, come in and take a note. And he would just dictate a letter. Dear Mr. Smith, thank you for your order of 42,000 cases of canteens. They will be shipped and delivered, blah, blah, blah. And the secretary but it is just all these little squirrels and scribbles. And then the secretary would take that and then type up the letter. It's called shorthand. It's kind of cool. Secretaries, nurses. The top of page 5 is what we need to look at. And again, the College Board doesn't ask you a lot of multiple choice questions about this. They ask a lot of short answer or especially long essays, compare and contrast the change of the middle class over the last 200 years. How do you do that? So one of the ways you would is talk about how they were little, how they grew, and then even how they grew in segments. So characteristics. They are liberals. They believe, and not liberals like political liberals, but classical liberalism. They want their government to have a constitution. They want to know what it says. They want representation in their either parliament or states general. They want to own land. They want to have the ability to own land. They want accountability, respectability. They want their economic success protected based on families. So they are in the idea of a family unit. The family is the foundation of social order. F, education and religion is very important. Their children should have access to this. And look at G, strong feelings of nationalism. This middle class is going to be that push toward that ism of nationalism. Again, these chapters are setting us up for World War I. And I'm going to tell you when we start World War I that World War I was caused by maniacs. And each one of those acronyms is an ism, with the first one being militarism, and one of those ends being nationalism. And when you have the group of people that will be fighting the war, middle class and poor, with a strong sense of nationalism, that's going to help. The working class is going to be 80% of the population. Please don't confuse working class with middle class. Middle class people are what's called white collar workers. They sit behind desks, they don't use their hands. Working class people use their hands. They have trades, they have skills. Not to say that they don't probably have money like the middle class, but that's the criteria for which we measure that. Peasants, hired hands, less unified, highly skilled workers at the top. So those that have a really high skill working with their hands or have a trade. Um, Construction bosses, foremen, highly skilled craftsmen, semi-skilled craftsmen, carpenter, bricklaying, um, and then the rest would be servants and unskilled workers that just work at factory. By 1900, over half of working women were domestic servants. Half of the women that were working in England were servants. So that says two things. One, not a lot of jobs for women. And two, a whole lot of people had servants. All these middle class people, that was one of the things that separated them and made them part of this group, was to be and have servants. Changing family, you can tell I don't really like these topics. This is always difficult. Social history for historians. Romantic love becomes the most important reason for people to get married. They no longer have to do it for economic reasons. Middle class females were monitored extremely closely. The top of page 6, high rate of illegitimate births, meaning women that get pregnant outside of marriage, is going to decrease, but doesn't mean that they're not having sex. They just get married if the woman or female gets pregnant. Prostitution is still a very strong part of European life. Middle and upper class men constituted most of the customers, and many of these men will have mistresses that they will set up in separate houses and live very nice lives. After 1850, the mark of most wives was increasingly distinct and separate, and we begin again to separate the household into what men do and what women do. Marked a contrast with pre-industrial Europe, where farming and cottage industry, everybody worked together. If we think about that, putting out industry, the whole family worked at these jobs. There was no distinction between who did what. Everybody worked at these jobs. Now with this middle class setup, there are distinct spheres of the family and in the home that were designated. This is what the men do. This is what the women do. Child rearing, we lower the mortality rates, meaning children live longer. We measure mortality rates by the percentage of children that die before the age of 5. And that, again, changes the way people deal with their children. So as the mortality rate increases, meaning more of my children live, the thought for social historians is that that creates more of a bond, and that this will be the change in children. So right around this 1850, middle of the 19th century, the tendency for middle class to treat their children like children and not little adults and form an emotional attachment becomes prominent. Mothers increasingly will breastfeed their children. Fewer children will be abandoned. Married couples will decrease the number of children because they live, and they sought to provide more care. More books will be printed about how do you take care of your children and how to improve their lives. Working class people obviously are going to be different. Their children are going to be looked at as economic assets. How quickly can we get this child working and out in the workplace? Young working adolescents will break away. They have jobs. They can move. And that will be a pattern that will continue into the 20th century. So we call this time period the beautiful time, the Belle Epoque, the beautiful era. And mostly because for almost everyone, this will be one of the few times for almost everyone, their standard of living increases, even the working class poor. The standard of living will increase. Increased standard of living, and it will be referred to as the Belle Epoque, the good old days, the glorious time. Um, and the thoughts of this lead to two things. On page 7, number 2, increased leisure time resulted with increased money to spend. So if you're making more money, then you have more money to spend. And what are you going to spend that on? Well, for Europeans, this will be the first time that they have money to spend to have fun, to do fun things. And that will be what this last focus will be. And one of the things that will be sports. Now, when we talk about why would we ever talk about sports in a history class, I don't know if you can see those little pop-up things. They drive me nuts. Why would we talk about sports in a history class? Well, one of the reasons that we do for this time period especially is nationalism. One of the ways that you can clearly see this nationalistic is if your country wins all the sports games, right? We're the best runners. Our country makes the best boxers, our country. And when you see, especially in the event of boxing, this guy representing the great island of Great Britain and this guy representing the great country of France, and they actually come to blows in a ring, that nationalistic heightened expression becomes important. And what's going to happen is this is going to be the return of the Olympics. And this return of the Olympics is really, again, this nationalistic desire and need to be the superior country. And we're not going to fight, we're just going to do it with sports. So sports grew astronomically, in particular football or soccer, rugby, bicycles. Bicycles are everywhere. Automobile races, track and field. Bicycles going to sweep across. Women are going to take part in these as well. And it will be, please look at D, really important for women because it starts to get us out of those restricted binding clothing, right? It's hard to ride a bicycle with all those skirts. And so this will be when we start changing the acceptable way for women to dress. And this, again, under E, the emerging sports culture mirrored the growth of aggressive nationalism. Social Darwinists believe that sports competitions confirm the superiority. Like, exactly, right. We are the best. Why? Because we can win races. We have superior genes that lets us do all that stuff. Taverns are going to increase. Department stores. This is what I like talking about. Shopping. We have money to shop, and we build these gigantic department stores. And shopping, and if you understand this, becomes entertainment. I can't get my husband to understand that shopping is my entertainment, but it is. It's fun. Even if you're not buying anything, shopping is fun. We have dance halls, concerts, all these really awesome and great things, as well as new inventions that let us participate. Telephone, automobile, gramophone, radio, motion pictures. And then our last bit that we'll talk about today is education. States' role in standard education increases. By 1900 in England, all children 5 to 12 were required to attend primary school, and it is free. France, the Ferry laws require children ages 3 to 13 to attend primary schools, and again, it is for free. They are following the trend that Germany has already set up. Significant increases in literacy. And again, we have to pause and think, why would governments spend money to send children to school? And I'm going to pause so that you're all saying, so they can get jobs, so they can pay taxes, right? That's what I was talking about yesterday. All of my sunshiny, sweet AP Euro faces need to have that cynical thought in your brain. Governments don't give away things. When they do, they expect something in return. So they are training all of these children. And it is important to note, it stops, right? We're only going to give you free education until you're 12 and 13. And then you're going to get a job. and work. So, what they're teaching them in those primary schools are very simple, rudimentary reading, writing, mathematics, and indoctrination of how awesome your country is, like singing a national anthem, reciting the history, the great history of your country. So, um, girls had less access to secondary education than boys. And at that point, your family has to pay. So then we separate, right? Who gets the education and who does not. All right, so we'll stop there on page 8. I hope you guys have a great Wednesday. There is an assignment, so make sure that you do that. It's a quick little exit ticket. So make sure you get that completed, and I'll see you tomorrow. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.